Hello, everybody. Scott Golden with Pro Wrestling Logic here, and we are going to review the AEW Dynamite event for the 17th of June 2020. I hope to have NXT up within the next few hours as well. Perhaps a couple other things depending on how work goes. When you're self employed, you never really know, and I primarily work third shift. But if you like what you hear, like, subscribe, comment below, and all that good stuff. I love Dynamite. I have been a supporter since the start of the show. And this program, as I go through it, I'll probably come up with some things I didn't like. But I'd say I liked at least 90% of this show. So certainly worth, and actually looking at my notes, I did come up with at least one thing I don't like right looking at them. But for the most part, I'd say 85 to 90% of the show is a win in my mind. And I'm good with that. Anyway, we start off with a tag team championship match. Kenny Omega and Hangman Page against Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall with Brandy. And good to see the tag team champions finally defending. Been a while, thanks to the COVID deal. It's been a while. But anyhow, not a bad match overall. I am not the world's biggest Kenny Omega fan. I think he's good. I think he's very good. I do not think he is the best in the world as some people do. I do not think he is in the conversation for best in the world. I think he's in the conversation for best in a certain style of match. I think he's in the conversation for best transfer from Japanese stardom to American within the last 20 years, but I don't think he's best in the world related, and that just never made sense to me. So Allie is not out here to start the match, which does kind of tell the story that she's going to get involved in the finish, which is unfortunate. Secondly, I don't like Excalibur in the role they have him in. He could be an interviewer. He could be the hype man for the tail of the tape style packages. He could be a person to throw to packages. But he reminds me tonight, and it was even in this match, why I don't like him. There was a point in the match where they have all four guys in, and rather than shooting home the drama of the match and the potential title change, he's talking about what move is being hit. And there's a time to tell the story of holds and moves and fancy names. And there's a time to tell the story of what's happening in the match, what this could mean for the promotion, what this could mean for the guys in the match, what this could mean for the championships. And he doesn't have a clue about how to do that. Now, as much as Jim Ross at 66, 68 years old isn't my favorite guy, he was reining it in. Tony Schiavone, phenomenal in that role. And if they're going to, here's another pet peeve commentary-wise, since I did commentary, even though only at the indie level. If they're going to have a wrestler come out as part of commentary team every week, please cut back to a two-man booth so at most you have three. When there's four people out there, it gets clunky every time. And it doesn't matter who it is, and it doesn't matter how it works. I just, no thank you. Anyway, so, you know, they do a little bit with the dark thing. I wish, as much as I'm not a fan of video packages, I would like to see a 2-minute dark summary every week. They did do bottom of the screen this week, kind of like an ESPN crawler of winners and losers. But I'd go a bit further. At the start of every program, last night on Dark, and then you do 15 seconds of every match on Dark, right? So 2.5, 3 minutes when they run 10 matches, it wouldn't be a problem. That way, you could get in the storyline with Allie and Dustin and Brandy and QT, and people would be caught up. The only reason I'm a fan of that being a package is because, for all intents and purposes, let's call AEW TNT, obviously on the TNT network. let's call YouTube its own network. If there's people that don't follow the YouTube show, they do need to be brought up to speed. If there's people that don't follow TNT, well, that's available in most homes. And if it's not available in your home, you're not going to see the show anyway unless you're seeking it out through piracy. So the point is that Dark is less likely to be seen than Dynamite is, and I think summing it up is a good idea. Tony reading messages from Britt Baker during a tag team championship match, not a good idea. Anyway, so Omega and Dustin begin the match. They do a accidental headbutt spot in the corner early to tell the story of the match that QT has to take over a little bit more. I wasn't a fan of this. I would have rather see them do a knee spot or a hamstring or an ankle, something that you can imagine it turning. The headbutt spot, if there's no blood, my thought is, well, he didn't get hit that hard. You know, that's just not a thing. I mean, Dustin did a good job selling it, but do we really want to tease a concussion? Not so much. Anyway, Omega hits a springboard double sledgehammer, and then Page hits a sliding lariat for near fall. I'm not a fan of the lariat being used as a near fall spot. If that's Page's finish, it should be saved for finishing sequences. QT takes a beating, but he's hanging in there. He's holding on, and you know, that's the story of the match, is this relatively unknown in comparison certainly to Dustin Rhodes is hanging with some of the best in the world. Anyway, Dustin's tagged in. Natural Nightmares are kind of running wild. Dustin does the Canadian Destroyer, does a flip dive off the apron, plus his tremendous power slam. So QT hits a move here. It doesn't go as quite as planned. Allie comes out. She's trying to fire QT up, and QT nails a diamond cutter. I wish there was more done with Dallas Page, even if he sent in like 20-second videos a week of QT, you can do this, I've given you my moves, something. The announcer's referencing it, but nobody seeing Dallas Page just comes off as like urban legend versus if Page was actually cheering him on, even if it's through like some online video, it would mean something. Anyway, Adam Page hits a where'd he go here? He hits an elbow for near fall, and then Omega hits the V-trigger, gets a near fall. Again, if that's it's supposed to be one of Omega's 3 finishes, it shouldn't be used as a near fall spot. It should be just a finish spot. Anyhow, so finish is hit here when Omega and Page hit a last call. Omega gets the cover on QT Marshall for the win. Allie coming out really didn't do anything. Maybe they're going to tease that later. My gut feeling with the Allie thing is that somehow or other, QT Marshall gets in a situation where he's a potential champion. Maybe he slips over on whoever beats Cody or something, and then she realigns with Butcher and the Blade. That's my gut feeling of where this is going, but I don't really know. Anyway, so Anna Jay gets a promo package. She said she's signed to AEW and still figuring out the entertainment side of wrestling. Okay, first thing I hate. So, what is it? Is it sport? In which case, the record should matter, and wins and losses should matter, and championships should be everything. Is it entertainment? Because if it's entertainment, then none of that really matters, and we all should just be able to blow bubbles out our butt while dancing a hula. Make up your mind as far as what you're presenting. I don't like the double-edged presentation. Now, if you want to present a completely entertainment product, more power to you. If you want to go completely sports, more power to you. The blending of sports entertainment is really what's partially killing WWE, or has killed them in the last little while. So, Abaddon, which is a new woman they have against Anna Jay. Almost said Amazing Jay. Amazing Jay was an independent wrestler in the 90s. In the New England area, he was a Shawn Michaels ripoff. He popped into my head because I remember watching a whole bunch of his stuff when I was a kid. Anyway, sidebar story. Anyhow, so Abaddon is basically your typical horror chick kind of deal. She reminds me kind of Rosemary from Impact, if you need a frame of reference. She squashes Jay, beats her with a Huracan Rana. Not a fan of this. Why give a woman a video package? Good idea. And then beat her in less than 3 minutes? Bad idea. It just doesn't, like, if you're going to do that, and I have no problem with them doing that if they see more in this new woman, but hold the video package off until she gets a win after the video package. Simple psychology here. Anyway, post-match, Dark Order enters with Jay still down. Evil Uno presents Cabana and Envelope, and Brody Lee acknowledges this. 5 and 10, so does that make 15? Helped Jay out of the ring. I think Jay has some good stuff going. Too many people, for my taste, involved with the Dark Order right now. I like the concept. If they're going to do something with it. I mean, you could run with build it for 6 months, and then you have defectors. Kind of like the Jim Jones People's Temple cult kind of deal. You could do that, but you can't have new members every week. You can't tease new members every week without more of a vision of where it's going. And they have not done the payoff very well. Anyway, so MJF with Wardlow defeats Billy, otherwise known as the former Billy Gunn, with Austin and Colton Gunn. Obviously Billy's two sons. I didn't even know he had a second son that was in wrestling. I knew he had two sons. I did not know they were both prospective wrestlers. Anyway, so MJF and Billy is fine for what it is to get MJF some TV time. MJF is still, to me, the most likely to be the guy in the next 5 to 10 years for any promotion in the U.S. Maybe even, well, I don't know that he would do well in Japan, but anywhere in the world that has a entertainment factor to their company, I think he can thrive and shine. And that's not to say he's not good in the ring, but he is the closest thing to a complete wrestling package we've seen in at least 10 years anywhere. Anyway, so Billy hits a boot and hits a thumb to the eye. Don't know why a babyface is using thumbs to the eye, but anyhow. Billy follows him around. Billy goes for the Faymaster, but MJF avoids it. He hits a chop block, gains control. They work over the legs. They being Wardlow and MJF. Short comeback by Billy. And MJF goes for the Faymaster. Gunn blocks it and hits his own move. Wardlow jumps up on the apron, takes the ref, and the diamond ring falls off or is thrown to, depending on your perception. MJF uses the ring to knock out Gunn. And then ultimately he gets the victory. Surprised they didn't do a interview with MJF here. Instead, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt are at ringside. They have a pull apart with all of them, so I assume MJF's going to need a partner at least in a little bit, in order to do the 6-man tag that I'm sure is coming somewhere. MJF is still undefeated in singles action and only one loss being a multi-person match in his AEW career. I think they need to harp on this a little bit more. They do acknowledge it, but I don't think it's turned up enough. Alex Marvez, who I don't quite understand why he has an on-screen role. Nothing against the guy, I don't get where his pull is. Anyway, interviews Jericho and Guerrero backstage. Jericho tells him he has a fat head. I don't know where that's useful, but anyway. Jericho and Guevara promise to beat the best friends to a pulp tonight. He says he and Guevara are more friends. They're blood brothers, and blood is thicker than orange juice. Yes, probably viscosity-wise, this is true. Britt Baker is out next. She is wheeled around in her wheelchair. Penelope Ford versus Sheeta for the Women's Championship at the multi-week Flyer Fest events. Baker said that Ford only got the shot because she hurt her. She then tells Tony Schiavone that they are on a friendship timeout. Man, where were those when I was in high school? Those would have been useful to have, at least a couple of them. And she says that TNT is going to be upset with him for losing the interview. Baker calls Rebel, a.k.a. Reba, to roll her away, but Big Swole is driving Baker's cart and drives off. Man, I wish they had found a way to put her in a garbage can. That would have been classic. Like, just put her somewhere unsavory and then have her talk about needing hazardous duty pay next week. That would have been like a great way to close the angle. Anyway, Cody brings out his own challenger for the TNT Championship. I do not like this. If you have to have Marvez, if you have to have Excalibur, can we take one of them, turn them into a representative of the championship committee, and they do the introductions? The idea that Cody, who is a champion, is the one to introduce his unknown to television opponent, I don't like this at all. Anyway, he cuts a promo. He says it's lonely at the top. He then wonders if he's still a member of the Elite. He says that the Nightmare Family isn't with him either. This is kind of teasing towards Cody going heel eventually, which could be interesting, especially if they tie in the MJF thing and there's a ruse to where MJF and Cody realign at some point. That might explain why they never blew off the feud, but that could be an interesting twist at some point down the road. Anderson says he's cut a promo, and he said there's timing for everything, and the match with Jake Hager at Firefest just isn't right. Arn said he has an opponent for Cody tonight, someone who'd be a good test. Ricky Starks video package airs. They acknowledge the NWA. Now, sidebar, because I think it bears acknowledging. Starks puts himself over as the hardest free agent in wrestling. I think that's an overstatement, but at the same time, hype is good. So, here's a national wrestling company. They have put on the map a smaller wrestling company by mentioning them on national television. And to this I say, great. If you want to differentiate yourself as a wrestling company for the people, then you acknowledge other companies on a semi-regular, let's say once or twice every month or two. So let's say once a month just as a marker. You bring in guys from Ring of Honor. You bring in guys from PWG. You bring in guys from Japanese independent promotions. And you acknowledge and say their name on television. The reason is because you want to have as many relationships as you can for trade agreements, talent exchanges, potential talks. If you want to borrow somebody one time and you've done goodwill, that's phenomenal. It's smart business. WWE doesn't do it. It's because WWE, and I will say this directly, and it will sound bitter, it's not. It's statement of fact. They don't care about anything but their brand and how much they can coerce out of people to pay for their brand. And I think it's fair to say AEW, while they care about their brand, while they care about carving out a niche on national television, they care about the future of the wrestling sport business, whichever term you're more comfortable using. They care legitimately about that. I don't buy that the people in charge at WWE do. I don't buy that they ever will. I don't think they have in 20 years. So I don't think they have since WCW went out of business, and they don't think they have competition. And that is a reason, from a business perspective, and as a business owner, why I will always root for AEW over WWE, because they care about the long game for the sport. Anyway, so Starks has a really good showing for his first match on national television. As a person that watched the NWA when they were up and running, Starks was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 people that didn't have other exposure who really proved himself. So, very back and forth athletic contest, tons of near falls, traditional, heel babyface dynamic. Cody, obviously, your babyface for this. They show Hager many times in the back. He's watching the match. They trade hammerlocks and other arm bars and the like. Really, if you like old school wrestling, this is probably as close as you're going to get on national television, at least for the first few minutes. Cody misses his charge. He's selling the ribs. Arn pulls Cody out of the way before Starks could connect. And obviously, it's smart strategy, but Arn's starting to do that more heelish stuff. Starks hits a DDT, and he hits a superplex. Odd that we've seen. We see those a little bit too much. Cody hits a dive to the outside, and Jim Ross talks about how this isn't the right time to do that type of maneuver, and Arn's going to talk to him about it later. And a lot of people who love dives, and they love 450 splashes, and they love moonsaults for the sake of moonsaults, they're going to say, oh, Jim Ross is old. But really, if you're in control of a match, why are you going to use your body as a human lawn dart? If this is an athletic contest, why? Now, I'm more anti-dives than the average person. I think you should see maybe, at most, 2 dives on a wrestling event, period. 2 dives per week, and you set them up to where the heel has run away, and so the dive is more, you get back here, I'm going to get you, boom, boom, boom. Anyway, Cody misses a disaster kick, a series of near falls, and then Cody hits the crossroads for the win. One thing that's indicating he's going heel, at least to me, if you notice, if you watch the crossroads early, it's more of a turning move, like a spin. Over the last several months, let's call it two months maybe, it's turned into more spike him on his head, which is really, really subtle, but it acknowledges that subtle turn-ish too. So Cody and Starks shake hands post-match. Cody now has defended the championship for 3 straight weeks. I hope that they keep the weekly championship defense aspect even after Cody loses it. I really do. Young Bucks against the Superbad Squad, obviously Sabian and Havoc with Penelope Ford. Okay, so here's the first thing I out and out hated. Why? If you have teams like the Best Friends, the Lucha Brothers, the Private Party, who I'm not even a fan of, why do you have Sabian and Havoc on your TV show? No. Just no. Neither of these guys is going to cause someone who's flipping channels to stop and say, yay. stop and say, I'm going to watch this. I wasn't watching it before. You can make an argument for the Bucks. The Bucks don't wrestle the style that I prefer, but I get it. They wrestle a style that is speed driven, and therefore people will stop for that. But as far as Havoc and Sabian, who? Tell me in the comments who is going to stop to watch either one of them, unless it's to watch them get squashed. I don't get it. I won't get it. If I'm wrong, tell me so. But especially when you have what used to be the Revival and other great teams, why are they even on my TV? Leave them for Dark. Leave them for maybe a pay-per-view pre-show, but there's no reason for them to be on a national television program. Absolutely, positively none. So Havoc goes right after Matt's ribs, which does make sense. Nick tags in. Bucks with some double teams. They hit planches. Again, if Matt has his ribs taped up, why is he diving anywhere? Because he's brain dead? Like, if I'm injured, I'm not going to risk my body. This does not make any sense. Anyhow, so Butcher and Blade fight verbally from the audience. They later jump the rail. Now, another problem with this. If you want to have them jump the rail, have them do it off camera. Okay, we figured out they were in the building, but they jumped the rail and they came in and they attacked the Bucks. Great. But, and I know this is simple, this is overly simplistic for lots of people. When you have wrestlers jump the rail and it's caught on camera, what that says to certain, let's say, teenagers, drunk 20-something males is there's no consequence for jumping the rail. Now, does it say it literally? No. You know, they're going to point out don't do that. But subliminally speaking, it says there's a way to get away with jumping the rail. And especially with alcohol being served at most venues where wrestling is you know, put on the bill, there's a chance that you could get drunk and jump the rail and somebody gets legitimately hurt, whether it's a fan through the other fan jumping over the rail or a wrestler or whatever. Bad idea. Anyhow, so Havoc hits Matt with a wet floor sign, or I thought that was Penelope Ford. Hits Havoc with hits one of the Bucks with a wet floor sign, and FTR comes to ringside. They're watching the match, and that leads to a commercial break, wherein Matt eventually makes his comeback. He makes a hot tag. I mean, again, Bucks matches are very formulaic. They're not for me, but I get it, and people like them, so I need to accept that there's things that are over that don't connect with me as a person. Anyway, Nick uses a sharpshooter on Sabian. Havoc grabs, of all things, a hammer. Where's he get it? Why does he have it? Why is it anywhere near ringside? So many questions and no answers. And of course, everyone's going to think I'm overthinking this. Anyway, Ford jumps in, hits Nick with the wet floor sign. See, I knew Penelope Ford was part of this. She was just part of it a little bit later. And then Havoc hits a DDT for near fall. Sabian tags in, hits the assisted DDT for the near fall, and Havoc and Matt are tagged in, and everything goes crazy. Matt hits a Northern Lights suplex series. Both of the Bucks are in. They hit Risky Business. Sabian hits a top rope double stomp. Sabian's bleeding from somewhere on his body, around the face or head. The match breaks down. There's an Indie Taker on Havoc. Bucks hit super kicks. Both Bucks hit knee strikes on Sabian for the pin. At least the Bucks, who have more stake in the company, both literally and figuratively, win here. So, Butcher and the Blade jump the Bucks, and FTR jumps in and hit the Butcher and Blade with the Goodnight Express. The Bucks hit Blade with the Indy Taker. FTR hit Havoc with the Spike Piledriver at the same time. So they're teasing and teasing and teasing. FTR and the Bucks facing off in the ring. It's coming. Great. You're teasing it. Maybe it happens at Flyer Fest. I'm hoping they hold it off till the next pay-per-view, but it might take a little bit. That may be too far out. Anyway, announcers throw to a Taz and Brian Cage promo. Taz explains what happened last week with Moxley and Cage, and says Moxley is stealing the gimmick that he came up with decades ago. I don't really get how. They didn't really go into that too much. Cage interrupts Taz and says he can't wait for Flyer Fest to rip Moxley's head off, take the championship. Cage says no one's better than himself. This was fine. I still think if you're going to have Taz, I don't think that Cage should speak except maybe one sentence, and he does here, but I think they got to keep that there. Moxley, with a promo, says he's got demons, and beating people up is the only way he can keep them under control. I don't quite get that. I would think beating them up would bring the demons more to the surface. But maybe I don't get how his specific demons work. Anyway, so next week is a bunch of matches, including but not limited to Sammy Guevara, Matt Hardy, Brody Lee, and Colt Cabana versus Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss. Yuck. And I'm not yucking at Sonny Kiss. I'm yucking at the team because I don't get why they've teamed them together. Wardlow versus Luchasaurus in a lumberjack match. First in AEW history, I do believe. FTR versus Natural Nightmares. And Moxley in action with Taz on commentary. All that announced next week. And again, they've done such a good job that I care about next week's event before it even is on my TV. I remember when WWE used to do this with Raw. I remember when they used to do it with Superstars and other programs. They haven't done that in years. Sometimes they do it with a match or two for NXT, but they don't do it with a complete program. They haven't for a very long time. Anyway, let's see. So Reba uses a app to track Britt's phone, and as I called it because Baker is in a dumpster out back, and Baker's not happy with this. She says she's going to sue her and beat her up if it's the last thing she ever does. And then we move to Matt Hardy joining commentary for the main event. Guevara sings Jericho's entrance theme. We move on to the main event. Best Friends defeat Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara to retain the tag team championship shot at Fyter Fest or Flyer Fest. I'm very surprised by this. This caught me off guard, and it's been a long time since a main event of a wrestling program wasn't predictable. Hardy doesn't really do much through this. Taylor and Trent open with a lot of anger and fire for Jericho at hurting Orange Cassidy. Taylor chokes Jericho with a shirt. Trent with a spear on the floor to Guevara. Jericho and Guevara cut Taylor off. Guevara uses Jericho's old pin styles, which I think is a nice touch. Jericho misses a lion salt, which leads to a tag to Trent. Jericho tags out almost at the same time. Trent hits a suplex on Guevara. Jericho hits Trent with the baseball bat known as Floyd. Turns the match back their way through that. We go through the commercial break. And then Taylor gets a tag, hits a Falcon Arrow and a Liger Bomb on Guevara for a series of near fall. Best friends hit the Soul Food half and half combo. Jericho breaks that up. Jericho looks at Trent and locks him in the walls of Jericho while Guevara hits a flip dive over the top onto Taylor on the outside. Trent forces a rope break. Jericho hits a lariat, then tags out. Trent crotch Guevara on the top rope. Best friends hit an assisted superplex. And Trent hits a lariat. Why are there so many lariats in this dang show? And Jericho breaks up a pinfall. Guevara rolls up Trent with a handful of tights, only for a near fall. Finish of the match sees Guevara go to hospital. Trent fights out of it and sent Guevara into the ropes. Camera operator trips Guevara. Trent then hits a version of Strong Zero for the win. Cameraman reveals himself to be Orange Cassidy, and we go off the air. After he takes Jericho down, hits some punches, and Jericho goes running. They meaning Jericho and Cassidy, announced for Flyer Fest. They've done what I didn't think was possible. They've gotten to the place where the average fan should care about seeing Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. Which, if they can do that, they can do anything as far as getting people over when they choose to. It's just sometimes they choose people that are unexpected. There's, I guess, a bit of an art form to it, or whatever you want to call it. But that is the Dynamite review. I will keep you posted. NXT up next within the next few hours. Also, Dark and Impact coming as well, hopefully tonight, if not tomorrow. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.